I'll just reiterate that we can get paralyzed by some of these things, but if we can just take a step back and look through what some of these possibilities are, then we can tariff-proof our business and just make it better all the way for the future.
All the way around. Hey, guess who I have with me today? One of our very own coaches. So excited to be doing this with you, Dana. Thank you so much for joining us. We're here at our client intensive with our mastermind clients, and Dana just taught this amazing session on something that is top of mind for all of us now. It's about how to navigate tariffs and all economic shifts. And the reason why I decided to share, the reason why I knew it was important to share it with you was not only in light of what's going on, but also the fact is that this is how you can tariff-proof your business, really, isn't it? And to be able to deal with any sort of economic struggle or shift, right?
Yeah. And thank you so much for having me, Cathy. We're going to always face economic uncertainty and challenges and changes in any business at any moment in time. I always like to think of business as a moment in time. And at this moment in time, it happens to be tariffs that we're talking about. And so some of the things that you can think about in your business today to mitigate your risk and to be more proactive in terms of how you're running your business can help you to thrive through these moments of uncertainty and to protect your business a little bit. So let's get into it. I have decades of experience in corporate retail. I was a buyer for a major retailer in Chicago, and through doing that for many, many years. And then I started teaching. So I actually teach at Columbia College Chicago. I teach retail and merchandising and all the things. And when I tell people that, I say I don't teach design, but I do have an understanding of how that impacts what we do as well. And then I started with RETAILMavens a couple of years ago, and I love working with our independent retailers.
Yeah, because,
for me, forget the big guys that are out there. To me, they are the backbones of our communities. And I think that helping independent retailers to be more successful and to give them some of those tips and tricks that we have from the corporate side that we know can really help to benefit their businesses.
Absolutely. Well, and I really appreciate your perspective that you bring from dealing with all those students, all those different age ranges of kids and of customers, right? Dealing with the tariffs. I'll be honest, I was the one who said, do we really need to talk about this? I hate to focus on negative things, which is just true. But of course, you can't stick your head in the sand about it. I was so grateful for the way you decided to handle this topic and how you dug into it.
I would just add that to your point about engaging with students I've been teaching for a long time. I've had one of those careers where I've always done two things, and seeing students over the years and hearing from students from many different backgrounds and from different geographic areas is that they say that where there's smoke, there's fire. And I hear things from students that if I start to hear them over and over and over again, I say there's something to that. And students are kind of asking about this and wanting to understand it more, because I think especially for our retailers out there, you can get so entrenched in the day-to-day of your business that you maybe aren't thinking about all these other things going on out there, or you can get paralyzed by them. And so I hope we can make a little sense of that today.
Exactly. Please do. So, yes.
So the truth of the matter is that we all lived through COVID. And in fact, today is 5 years since the world changed. And if you really look at your business and you look at how prices have changed over time, if your business is up, I'll say 7 to 9% or somewhere in that range, your business really isn't up. Right. All your business is doing is adapting to the prices that have changed along the way. And so what we need to recognize is that for our business to really think about our business in terms of a true plus, it's going to have to be in the 12, 15, even 20% range, because right now all we're doing is covering our costs of the changes of business,
which is so disheartening to think about.
I know. Yeah.
Wow.
But let me use just an example of changing prices. And when we think about tariffs, whether it's a 10% tariff or it's a 25% tariff, and we think about how does that price change affect us? Now, first of all, you have to remember that all of your goods are coming from one of these countries,
right?
Because whether it is the product itself, or it is the raw materials that are going into your product. We were talking about, things like zippers, right? You may not be thinking about that, but that's going to come from probably China. And, where's your cotton coming from, and all those different elements that go into the making of that garment or of that product, whatever it is, right? So if it's a 10% tariff, you're going to pay a higher cost with that tariff. And remember, your tariff goes into effect when those goods hit the border. Okay. So you might order them today thinking they're going to come in 30 days. But if the tariff goes into effect in 27 days, your price is going to change. So one of the most important things for retailers is to check your invoices and make sure that the price that you thought you were paying is the price that you're paying. But if it's going to be a 10% tariff on that, now you have to raise your price in order to make up for that 10%. And 10% may not sound like a lot, but when you start to multiply that over all of your products and over all of the quantity, it starts to add up. Okay. So now let's say that you have a 25% tariff on something. That's even more. And so you might take a very basic hoodie and you might have to raise the price on that anywhere at retail from, $2 to $8 or $10. And then you have to think about, is your customer going to pay that, or do you need to look for other product? But you have to cover those costs, right? So that you can still make your margins. You can't just eat it. Even if it's 10%, raise the price of your product by $2 or $3 or whatever it has to be in order for you to make up that price difference with the tariff.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because one of the things, one of the sessions we're talking about tomorrow, we're here for 2.5 days. We do it a couple times a year. Listen, if you guys are interested in joining, don't hesitate to just DM us. We'd be happy to we'll get back to you. I'd love to talk with you more about what's possible, because it's just fabulous to be in a room with all these geniuses. It's really wonderful. But I have seen that the cost of doing business has gone up more than I'm shocked by it, and I'm looking at numbers all the time. And so I'm positive that these store owners are going to be surprised too. So I can see how, if it was me, I'd be tempted. Oh, come on, $10. 10%. It's a $10 item. It's $1. I can suck it up. But you're right. You can't be tempted to do that, because the thing is that you'll be unable to sustain this. Who knows how long it will last? And when it's over, you can bring your prices back down for sure. But the thing is that if you aren't bringing home enough cash, if you aren't creating a sustainable business, then you're going to close. You're going to have to leave all these people that you've been serving so well for all these years. And so you owe it to yourself and to them to increase the prices, and recognizing that everybody is going to be increasing the prices. So it's not just you, it's going to be everybody doing it. But I know you'll be tempted, but do not just swallow that difference to charge.
Absolutely. And, it's so important. And this gets back to what I said a minute ago, to have good data. And so when your invoices come in, you have to look at the invoice. Look at the invoice. Look at what the PO was when you originally wrote the order. You have to have good data. So follow the data so that you can make sure that you're entering everything the right way into your POS. If you thought that thing was, $12 when you bought it, and now the invoice comes and it's $13, you need to make a price adjustment on that. So you have to have really good data and POS reporting.
Right. And just as one of the team members, one of our store owners said that they also recommend you should retag everything that's on your shelf now.
Absolutely. Take everything that you have. If it's that same or similar item, maybe it's just a different color, all the prices have to change on that.
They do.
So the second thing here is that you need to make informed decisions. And when you're making those informed decisions, you need to look at what your projected ROI is. When you're going to start to make some changes in your assortment or in the way that you're running your business, you need to project what your return on that investment is going to be to the best of your ability. And again, it's at a moment in time. So the way that you think about it today or at this moment might be different than the way you thought about it 5 years ago when COVID hit, right? So you have to think about things differently. So there's 3 things that you can kind of look at. One is, can you bring in promotional or exclusive product into your assortment? Things that nobody else has, okay? So maybe you're the only one in your trading area to have it. Maybe you do enough volume that you can get that thing in a special color or you can have it done in a special way that nobody else has. You're the only one who has it. Maybe you can come up with some other promotional ideas. That might be, you talk a lot about doing like bundles and boxes and things like that. But you can also think about other kinds of promotional ideas. One of the ideas we threw out here in the group yesterday was we have a lot of opportunities for senior discounts in business. But what about a Millennial Monday or a Millennial May, or, something else to attract and speak to really a different generational cohort? And there might be other promotional ideas that you could come up with for your business. But you have to project the ROI on it.
Well, and what I heard you say, and I just want to make sure that I'm clear. So you talked about exclusive products, and right, that's what those boxes are. Your store box, we talk a lot about that. The other thing then, so the promotional, I wasn't sure if that was specifically a marketing thing or if it was a markdown thing.
It can potentially be either, actually.
Right.
So just something that's a promotion in your business. But yeah, it could be either one. The other thing would be to create scarcity. So we only have so many of these. It gets a little bit back to the exclusive product again, but maybe you're going to have a limited edition of this particular thing. We were talking with one of our clients yesterday about she has a bird store and she does bird seed. And so she was talking about creating special quarterly bird mixes that were going to be mixed by like one of her customers. And so it would only be for that short period of time and then it would be done and they would move on to something else. So creating some of that scarcity. And then the third thing is educational. What can you do to educate your customer? Whether that is on some other aspect of your business. We have a lot of maker businesses, so maybe it's a particular method of knitting or sewing or something along those lines. But it could also be educational in terms of letting your customer know more about things that are sustainable, things that are environmentally friendly. It could be about how to make something. There could be any number of different educational things that you can do in your business that are not transactional, but that are about creating more value for your customer in your business. And so those are kind of the three things that you could think about and make decisions about which one, when, and then project what you think the return on those investments is going to be.
Well, and it's interesting because talking about the bird store, who's a new client for us, she was sharing how she has done all this education and she's always done the education for free. And would you mind sharing what we talked about?
Yeah, she's so kind and wanting to just share what she knows. And we talked to her today about that her knowledge has value. And so if you're teaching a class, if you're, putting all that education and knowledge out there, that has value. So your customers will want to come in for that. So we talked to her about charging for some of these events that she has. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. I think you suggested $25 and then they get 10 or $5 off if they buy something. And then
it was a $15 gift certificate and then a $10 donation to the charity that she's talking about, the birds that are impacted. Because I know for certain is that when there is a dollar amount, when there is a price assigned to it, that it has more value. So this is so deeply educational and she's bringing in all these samples. It is not a free class. It's not what a person would think was a free class. So she should be charging $25 for it. Really.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? If you have, 100 people who RSVP, and I think she has more than that RSVP, people are more invested in coming when you do charge for it. But more importantly, your knowledge and your time has value. And it's important to recognize that.
Well, and I love how what you're focusing on here too is that so we have this fact of how we have to increase how much we're charging for the goods, but also rather than staying focused on that transactional nature of that relationship, you're really looking to make it a long term, to make it a relationship, not just transactional, but to focus on the relationship. And I love that, how you can do that with an exclusive item. You can do that with a Millennial Monday, because that's really unusual. Millennial May, our millennial in the room got very excited about that idea. And then education, right? Because that really creates a deeper loyalty with the company.
Yeah. And all three of these things are going to speak to different customer segments. And so you have to really think about who is it that you're trying to engage and who is it that you want to be or bring back to your community and to speak to those different customer segments with the messages that they want to hear.
Right.
For
exactly.
sure.
Exactly.
Okay. So as you do this, of course, you have to really assess the risk in that. And you have to really think about, what's something that might have a high impact might also have a high risk attached to it. You have to make those decisions.
Right.
Or it might have a high impact with probability. Like you could look at it and go, like with this example of charging the $25, there's already a track record there of, high engagement and a lot of people attending these things. So it's highly probable that people are still going to attend those events, right? So you have to really do the risk assessment when you're doing this, because you don't want to just do things that aren't going to give you that return.
Correct. The only thing I would say, though, is that I challenge you to not allow your previous experience with something to determine whether or not you're going to try Millennial Monday or something. I don't want to hear anyone saying, oh, well, I did that, blah, 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 blah. Because now more than ever, you have to be willing to try things and track the data, but you have to be willing to try something new.
And I am so glad that you said that, because oftentimes we're too early with something. And so we could have tried something 3 or 4 or before COVID years ago, and it didn't work. But we're in a different time today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we're in a different time today than we were 5 years ago.
Right.
And so be willing to try it, but also go back and look at it and say, well, what was it that didn't work about it? But what was it that had that great potential in it? And maybe it just needs a slight turn or a shift to it in order to reintroduce it as a new concept this time around. But I would not give up on things quickly either.
Right.
Sometimes you have to repeat things a couple of times before they take hold and catch.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So there's a few things that you can be really proactive in at looking at right now. One is looking at your selling metrics. So looking at what your sales are, like your units per transaction, and how can you just increase that? Increase it by 20%. What does that mean? Does that mean putting a particular item or higher priced items at your register when your customer is there to check out? Does it mean that you challenge your team, to always add another item? Does it mean that you group and bundle like items together so that your customer sees the one thing that they want and they go, oh, you know what? I actually need that thing too. So look at your selling metric. Look at that on your POS.
So just to clarify that, when you're talking about items per sale, right?
Well, items or dollars. Yeah.
Because I was just wondering, what do you find is the best way for them to look at and to know, or what do they know? How do they know how to determine the baseline for that?
So if you go into your POS, you should be able to look at a period of time. It depends on when you look at it, but for right now, I would just look at the last month even and see, what were your total dollars? How many transactions did you have? Take your total dollars divided by the number of transactions. That'll tell you what your average unit or your average dollar transaction.
Your average sale. Yeah. Your average sale.
Your average sale. And then you can also look at each transaction. And then you can look and see how many
number of items
were on each transaction and do that.
And take the total items sold and divide it by the transaction. So you know how many items per transaction. And the one other thing that I like to do is always compare to how it was last year, because I find that months can kind of vary based on things. And so I think that becomes an important thing to do. Yeah, because I think there's great value in comparing to how things were last month for this same time. Yeah, that's great. Okay, what else should we look at?
Yeah, and then look at your vendor metrics. Run a vendor report. You should be able to run some kind of a vendor report. Look at what your best margin vendors were. You can data sort it a lot of different ways, right? You look at what your sales were, look at what your units were, look at what your sell-through was for that vendor. You could have a really high dollar amount on a vendor, but you could have a terrible margin. Okay, so you have to look at the different metrics and see where your best vendors are and really look and see where you're maybe over vendored. And there's probably vendors that are just not performing for you.
Right.
You could put those off to the side and move on from those vendors, because if you have stronger vendor relationships with fewer vendors, you have more leverage with those vendors, right?
Right.
And which is the thing we were talking about a little bit ago. You can have more to get product exclusives. You can get more off price from those vendors. You can get first at. You can be shipped before anybody else. So there's all kinds of things that you can do to have a stronger, better vendor relationship. And that's not even just a single vendor. It could be a rep who has multiple vendors who you have a stronger relationship with.
Mm-hmm.
So look at your vendor metrics would be the other thing to take a look at. And then the third thing would be to look at your assortments. Really look at your assortment of products to make sure that what you have is performing for you.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that I like to do is to look at the sale rack.
Mm-hmm.
Always look at the sale rack to see what was left over,
Mm-hmm.
what size was left over, what color was left over.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things that your customer didn't vote for.
Right.
And so you can look at that assortment and think about it. And then again, as you go forward, what are the things that are really going to get you more impact? And as we like to talk about, are never out of.
Right. Exactly.
And so having those things that you are always going to have in stock are number one.
Right.
Have to have those. So think about your assortment as well. And then the third or the fourth thing rather is initial markup.
Yes, I've done a number of issues about. I'll put in the notes the other podcasts that you can listen to about initial markup because it's critical.
It is critical. Cathy knows this, and Cathy's the same way. So many retailers just do a multiplier, and Cathy mentioned earlier you cannot be less than 60%. I think we'd argue 62 today. So just do the math on that rather than just taking a 2.2 or a 2.5, take and do the math on it and take that item, $20 divided by 0.38 and then look at the price. If it comes up to be, what did we have this conversation yesterday?
Oh, it was about one. If you have items in your store that are priced like $21 or $31 or $41, there's a whole science about how people see that when there's a number one in that one's place, and they actually think they're being overcharged. They actually think it's a ripoff. They think that, that should only be $20, not $21. Well, if you take those items that are 21, and if you mark it up to 24, and the 31 to 34, and the 41 to 44, do you know that you increase your initial markup by 10%? That's an immediate possibility of a 10% increase in sales because you marked it up. And to people, don't look at it any differently. If they're going to pay $21, they will pay $24 for sure. If you really want to take us to the next level, you could absolutely go to 25 and 35 and 45. Yeah. You absolutely could.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to do it.
Yeah, do not.
You will be surprised at how many people will not pay any attention.
Right.
And they'll be fine with it.
Right. Well, and they care about you. They care about everything you offer. I mean, that's the other part about this that's so critical.
Yeah.
I really love how you addressed this tariff situation and this economic shift and uncertainty, and who knows how it's all going to end. We don't have any idea where everything's going to be at, but I love how you changed our focus from looking at this as simply a transactional basis, but looking at it from a relationship perspective and the relationship with the customer as well as the relationships with the vendors. Yeah. I think that's really a powerful thing that we don't think about enough.
Yeah. And the last piece of that is how you flow your inventory, and that your inventory has to be fresh and new, because how often does your customer come in the store? They're coming in once a week, once every other week, maybe once a month, but your thumbs, those best customers, they're coming in more than that, right? And every time they come in, they want to see what's new and what's interesting and what's fresh. And so you want to keep that fresh inventory flowing in constantly so that they're always excited to see something new when they come in, and it helps you to stay on top of those prices so that you're not like front loading everything in all at once, and you can keep what's new and fresh in your assortment.
Yeah, it's much better to receive goods all throughout the season than just getting a whole clump of them. That's really
better for your cash flow.
Right. Yeah. It's better for your cash flow too.
And, again, it serves the customer because they can come in and they can see something new. In many ways, it's better for your vendor because they are having a constant flow of goods into your store. And, you get something in, if it sells well, then you're going to want to reorder it or get more or something similar or whatever. And so it's a win-win all the way around.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much, Dana. What I love about what you shared was that these are tried and true, proven strategies that people can do to take action on and to continue to improve their business going forward. And you gave them specific things to look at, which is really helpful. So thank you so very much. I'm so grateful for that.
Thanks for having me. And, I'll just reiterate that we can get paralyzed by some of these things, but if we can just take a step back and look through what some of these possibilities are, then we can tariff-proof our business and just make it better all the way for the future.
All the way around. Listen, if you'd like more information about what we do, we'd be honored to share it with you. I'll leave the link in the show notes so you can take a look. We have a fabulous training that goes into how we approach this and how we get the amazing results that we get with clients. We are on a mission to create more female millionaires in the world. That's what we want to do because we know the impact that women have on the world. And it is a lot, gosh darn it. It's really powerful. So thank you so very much for being here, and know that you are amazingly fabulous and that you are loved. Happy retailing. Bye-bye.
Bye.